welcome to the Harmony Channel. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. We'll be joined today by TJ Moe, Shemeka Michelle, and Delano Squires. We're going to talk about competing ideas as it relates to family, legacy, children, and we got two different media personalities. Chris Broussard, who remains at FS1 on the show First Things First, he reacts to Paul Pierce's video that's pretty anti-marriage and says that, Paul Pierce said this a few months ago, and Chris is just reacting to it, that, marriage is for old people and poor people. And then Joy Taylor, who used to work at FS1, and she's on her two personal podcasts with another woman, and talking about that the idea of legacy is silly, and that, men wanting to have kids for their legacy, and that's kind of silly. And she talks about how she doesn't want children. Let's start with Joy Taylor's clip. Let's play SOT number 8.
And I have this conversation with men a lot because for whatever reason, I look like a breeder. And people will argue with me about having kids.
Oh, yeah. No, you would be a wonderful woman for a man to have kids with.
No, I would be a terrible person to have kids with.
Well, you don't want the point I'm making is I understand why a man would want to get you pregnant.
I don't. Once I've said,
yes,
I don't want children, there couldn't be anything less appealing about me if you are someone who wants children.
No, absolutely. Right. But
however, there's many follow-ups.
Right, absolutely. But I'm saying the reason of the why is, first of all, to get Joy Taylor pregnant and to say that I have a baby by Joy Taylor and no other man can say that.
Oh,
do you know how many men would pay buku money just to say I have a baby by Joy Taylor?
How much are we talking? There's no amount of money. There's no amount of money.
But no, I just want you to understand.
I love children. I just don't want to have them.
Right.
I think it's great to have children.
Right.
I just don't want to have them.
Right.
I'm going to shock myself and the audience by saying I don't have a super strong problem with what Joy Taylor's saying there. The other woman sounds silly, and the conversation in its entirety is silly, but Joy Taylor saying, look, I don't want to be a mother, and men should hear that and stay away from me. If you want kids, men should hear that and stay away from her if they want kids. She's acknowledging she has no desire to be a mother, and so that would make her a bad mother. Delano, I'm going to start with you. Delano, just your reaction to what Joy Taylor's saying there. Am I wrong for hearing her as she's actually making some sense?
No, you're not wrong at all, Jason. I mean, I tweeted this recently, a little bit before we came on, but I said I agree with Joy Taylor. When the general thrust of her comment, where she started by saying that a man who just wants to have a bunch of children isn't really serious about building legacy, particularly if he doesn't want to get married and start actually have a family and raise his own kids. So I agree with it there. And I also agree that women who don't want children should not have them. I think the worst thing to do to a child is to bring children into a world, into homes where they're not loved. That's different than saying, well, you should just abort children if you don't want them. I'm not saying that. I'm saying once the child is conceived, then they have a right to live. But if someone beforehand says, I do not want children, for me, if I was a single man today or back when I was, I just wouldn't date that woman, right? I just wouldn't. There would be nothing more for us to talk about. So I agree with Joy Taylor. I will say this, just to point this out, and Shemeka's probably going to get there, so I'm going to steal it from her. The baby oil budget for that show must be about $1 trillion. Because
you need to apologize to me. You're stealing where I was going to go after everybody had their serious comments. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
So the other woman there is Kendra G, and she is a source of endless content. She hosts a show called the Kendra G Show. It's a dating show where you get to see a very good cross section of what dating looks like in today's society. And Kendra looked like she's ready for the cast iron pan right about now. So I don't have a problem really with what Joyce said. I'll end here though. I do think the conversation is important because Joy Taylor actually does believe in legacy. Because I did just a little quick search. She's used the word legacy dozens of times on her own Twitter feed, but always in reference to an athlete's professional accomplishments. And my armchair psychological assessment is that the reason that Joy Taylor is so adamant about not wanting children is because she, like a lot of modern women, see her career accomplishments as far more important than her role either as a wife and or mother. So it's not that she doesn't believe in legacy. She just doesn't believe that legacy comes through building a family. And I do think that that is emblematic of a much larger problem in our society today.
TJ, what's your reaction to the conversation?
I think I agree with both of you quite a bit as it relates to it's not a legacy to have 100 kids, like Cam Newton, not married to anybody, and like Elon Musk, like that's not really a legacy. I don't understand the idea that it is. In biblical times, that before we had a good understanding of the afterlife and heaven and hell and all that, that is actually how people thought they would live on, right? Abraham was promised a bunch of kids, and your name will live on forever because you are son of Abraham, son of David, right? And so, that is your legacy, but it's like that's there's a reason that Ishmael was shunned and Isaac got the lineage, right? It's supposed to be within your own marriage, and you build a family to then have that lineage. But I will tell you, Jason, I used to be just as stupid in a lot of ways as Joy sounded there. Because while she's not totally wrong, she still sounds stupid. I don't think we'd argue about that. But both of the women on that conversation sounded pretty stupid. And the reason I sounded stupid is because I didn't believe in legacy either. And it was dependent upon this one thing. Name me one person, any of the three of you, that lived in the year 1200. It's like, Shemeka, Delano, Jason, anybody? We can't do it, right? And so do you really have a legacy if that's true? Nobody will ever say your name again. And that's that's likely true for me. I mean, I doubt. I've been trying to dive into my own family lineage a little bit recently, and I can't name my great-grandfather's first name, right? And it's so bad because I would say great-great-grandfather. I can get to great-grandfather. It's so bad because we've been losing the people who care about that over the years, and the younger generations actually don't care. So legacy, even amongst children, are going away. So I'm getting a little off track, but my general point is, it is. I know she's not a Christian. I think she's been pretty clear about that. But the Bible is very clear that the only legacy that matters at all is through children, but it's still not a legacy if you go into Ecclesiastes if it's not through God. Ecclesiastes 6:3 says, a man may have 100 children and live many years, yet no matter how long he lives, if he cannot enjoy his prosperity and does not receive a proper burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. And what Solomon is saying is, your kids do not matter if you have no relationship with God. If it's not a God-centered marriage and you're not passing down, your godly lineage, and you're not going to see your kids in heaven, it'd have been better off if you just had a stillborn child. And so God's pretty clear about all of this in Scripture.
Shemeka, I thought, and I was saving you for last because I thought Joy invited this Kendra woman on to make Joy sound intelligent, and Kendra did her job at a very, very high level. The comment about, I just think it would be cool. I got a baby by Joy Taylor. And I was like, is Kendra like 12? I mean, is this, and then so I want you to comment on Kendra, but there's the other aspect, and Delano beat me to it. Why is she dressed that way? Why? It looks like she almost has no bottom on. Who shows up to an interview with all of their legs, not below the knee, but their entire legs on display with baby oil? What is she doing?
So, yes, she sounded really stupid. And this, for me, was an example of how a lot of women sound when they start having conversation with each other. It just lacks logic and common sense on so many levels. And so I actually said to myself, this is why I don't talk to women. They're stupid. And it's very annoying when it comes to the idea of the whole baby oil. As someone who likes to have my own legs greased up, I didn't have a problem with the actual baby oil, but yes, she had her entire leg showing, and I was just thinking, why? What's the purpose? But on the flip side, Jason, it could have been worse. I think what I thought when it came to physical appearance was when Joy Taylor said, for some reason, I look like a breeder. And I was thinking, lady, you don't have any hips. So you don't look like a breeder. You actually look like someone who could feed them very well after they have been bred. So I think she had that a little bit confused because she doesn't have childbearing hips at all. Um, when it comes to leaving a legacy, though, I think so many times we look at it as positive. When we're thinking about positive things, I went and actually looked up the definition, and it talks about leaving property or money in a will. It goes on to say the long lasting impact of particular events. So sometimes people have no idea that they're actually leaving a legacy, even if it's negative. Um, so I think that's what people need to actually pay attention to. I didn't have a problem either with her saying she didn't want to have children. I feel like if you know that you're not a mom and you're focused on your career and you're going to be a terrible wife and mother, don't do it. Don't waste somebody's time. So I did appreciate her at least being aware of the fact that she has no business being anybody's mom.
it this will sound like I'm taking a shot at Joy, but I'm not. There's some self-awareness here in terms of,
Mm.
hey, I'm not going to carry myself, conduct myself in a way that would be healthy to have kids. And I say that I think about my mother. One of the greatest gifts she gave me and my brother was after her and my dad divorced, as far as me and my brother knew, my mother dated a man named Andy for 5 or 6 years, and then she dated a guy named Joe Dickerson for 6 to 8 years. Other than that, that's all we knew about my mother's personal life, is that she dated these guys. And too many of these women, when they get divorced or they have kids out of wedlock, it's a revolving door of men coming
Mm.
in and out of their home. And I think Joy, and I'm saying this sincerely, I think, and without trying to be, derisive or take a shot, I think she knows that she kind of likes a revolving door. She's talked about that publicly. And it's like, man, this ain't the behavior that would make me a good role model as a mother for a young boy or a young girl. So many
Mm.
young boys are scarred by the men that their mother bring into their, and they end up fighting with the men, arguing with the men, and all this other stuff. And so this is Joy looked, in particularly in comparison to the Kendra, just looked really smart, and I gotta say hats off to her.
Very
Anybody got
generous,
a follow
Jason.
up? Go ahead, TJ. What?
It's very generous what you just did for her. The flip side, maybe you're right, but the flip side of that is I am so self-centered, I could not imagine taking 5 seconds to take care of anyone else. And I think
Yes.
that's far more likely the scenario here than great self-awareness that she'd be a terrible mother.
Well, now hold for 1 second. I'm going to say she could reach that level of self awareness because that used to drive my thinking. This is Jason.
Mm.
I used to tell people, man, the lack of responsibility, that's the key to happiness. I used to think that retarded. And it's a mistake. And so, maybe Joy knows how selfish she is, and just like, man, that's just not me. having to get up at 6 a.m. because some kid is crying, and now I got to go to baseball and football games I really don't have an interest in. Just sacrificing for some. Not, I think she may be aware that that's not me. That I like to sit in a beauty salon or in a makeup chair and have people fuss over me while I get ready to go on air and talk about nothing. Hats off.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, Delano.
yeah, I was gonna say, in the spirit of charity, I actually don't think that Kendra G. I mean, the way she delivered it might not be for everybody, but I think she was actually making a very salient point, right? Which is that for the type of men that Joy Taylor is around, right? These are big game hunters, at least in their mind, and they would think if I put a baby in Joy Taylor, that's a major accomplishment. This is one of the reasons why a lot of these guys end up dating and having babies with the same set of women, right? Where Trayvon Diggs got a baby by the same woman as Future and Lil Bow Wow. So I don't think Kendra G was speaking for herself. She was speaking in terms of what other men may think, and there is something to say that for a woman, and guys talk about this all the time. Like a woman who is hard to get is the type of woman that men like to chase. And one who is just open to everybody. Some guys will say, okay, I'll have my turn, but they don't see that woman as a prize necessarily. And whatever you may think about Joy Taylor, and there's some people who've had some, extensive thoughts on Joy Taylor over the years. For a lot of guys, they'd say, look, the whole league tried to get at Joy Taylor, but I finally got her.
And we're successful, but go ahead.
Okay.
Right. But in terms of a baby, now those guys may be thinking of in terms of the baby, but I'll use another name, Jason, and you I think you might have talked about this a few months ago. When Taylor Rooks got married, there's a lot of guys online who had no shot at all, but said, man, right? This is, oh man, I wish I could have married Joy Taylor. And that to me shows the difference between the two women, right? For Taylor Rooks, it was, no, I want to be somebody's wife. And in terms of what Kendra G is talking about in this conversation with Joy Taylor, it's mainly about, guys who want to make Joy Taylor their baby mama. And so I think there's something to be said for that. And the other thing, and TJ brought up the Bible, and obviously that's always good in these conversations, but it's not lost on me that in biblical times, a woman who could not have children cried out to God for him to open her womb.
That's right.
There's really not that I can think of off the top of my head, there's no examples of women who just said, well, I don't want kids because, my career threshing grain and, walking behind the ox is far more important than having children. But that is the phenomenon we have right now, which is an entire generation. And we're moving on to the second generation of women who just say, nope, it's not worth it. I'm not willing to trade the things that I think I would be losing if I become somebody's wife and somebody's mother for what I have right now in terms of my education and career. And as I said, that is one of the biggest problems facing the future of the American family. And I think Joy Taylor is just one very high profile symptom of that.
Delano, honestly, I think that Joy Taylor has been full of kids. Sometimes she just swallowed them. And I think that if you are going to sing a lullaby to your child at night, and the sound is hitting the headboard, hitting against the wall, you definitely just should not have children. So I'm happy. I don't think there are a lot of men saying, oh, I would love to have a baby with Joy Taylor. She has been ran through, and I don't think she's that much of a catch.
Let's switch up to Chris Broussard and the video, his reaction to Paul Pierce. Let's play that clip.
Yeah, I'll get married again because I'm getting old.
So you want a hospice wife? You want somebody to take?
Yeah, I'm getting old. Say, yeah, I'll get married again. I mean, it's just. I hear too many of the horror stories, like especially for, like I said, old people and poor people. Like, think about a man, successful, rich man. Like, I hate seeing stories like she got 70% of his wealth,
Right.
and she got the kids,
Right.
and she like
And got the
feel like
house, the car, yeah.
feel like you stripped a man down of his dignity.
Yeah.
Like, I hate seeing them stories.
Right.
Man, it just drives me nuts, and it's too many of them.
Right.
And the percentages ain't in our favor.
Right.
As successful, not only black, just people in that upper tax bracket. It's just like no advantage for us. And I'm not saying don't do it. Just, wait till you get old. or you broke.
I would tell you this, as a people, and I'm talking about Black Americans as a people, you can't have too many brothers with that mentality. Because that there is, in the history of mankind, there is not an example of a strong people where family wasn't the core, where they didn't have strong families. All right. And so I've said earlier, in the African American community from 1880, from 1880 to 1940, Black people were more likely, Black men and Black women were more likely to be married than white people.
I didn't know that.
From 1880 to about 1960, like I said, 90 to 80, then 80% of Black children were born in the two-parent households. God created the family unit, and if it takes one man and one woman to make a child, then just biologically speaking, logically speaking, historically speaking, and from a religious standpoint, not just Christianity, but major religions, period, that man and that woman should raise that child that shares 50%, that shares their DNA. 50% from her, 50% from him. That's just logic. The first institution God ever created was the family.
Delano, you shared this with me, and I think over Twitter, someone, maybe it was Hadley, but anyway, your reaction to what Chris is pointing out here.
Yeah, I mean, Broussard was cooking. I mean, I saw a little bit more of that interaction, and I think what I said on Twitter is what I'll say here, particularly with respect to reviving marriage and rebuilding the Black family. That movement has to be led by Black Christian men. There's no two ways about it. It has to be led by men in general, by Black men in general, but that nucleus has to be men who have the right understanding of the purpose of marriage, the architect of marriage, how it is defined, and the need to right the relationship between men, women, and the God who created them. That now, to Broussard's point, this is a general message that's broadly applicable, but in the context that he's talking about, I think he's spot on. And where he started was important because he said, you can't have too many men with the outlook of Paul Pierce within a community. And this is the case in general, right? You could take a few oddballs, right? In every society, you got people who are sort of outside the margins. But when what is outside the margins becomes the mainstream, then you have problems. And in America today, 70% of Black children are born to unmarried parents, and 44% live with a single mom. In DC, where I work, in the nation's capital, 77% of Black children are born to unmarried parents, compared to 93% of white children born to married parents. That is a 70 percentage point gap. So all the people, even if people, Jason, don't agree with, with a biblical worldview, and they say, take God out of marriage, even if you're a racial equity, a social justice, racial equity warrior, you should say, man, 70 percentage points is big, way bigger than any gap around college acceptance, high school graduation, criminal justice involvement. And that should motivate you to do something. So yeah, Chris Broussard is a needed voice in a podcast ecosystem that's full of Shannon Sharps and Paul Pierces and a bunch of other people who are growing old but are not elders because they have no wisdom. And I think that's why his message is needed today more than ever.
TJ?
I mean, I just think Paul Pierce just gave world-class bad advice. Nobody seems to care at all, because what he didn't say, and I didn't look this up before the show, should have. I assume Paul Pierce has children. right? And so what he's saying is, screw the kids. It's about me and my finances, and I'll still have kids along the way, but forget the structure that they need to thrive and succeed. Forget about putting them in a position to where they can have a successful life and have a good career. I mean, all the indicators, right? If you have two-parent household, they're better at everything, every single thing. And so you don't wait until you're 60 to get married and make sure they sign a prenup if you want successful children. So it's just world-class bad advice. What is interesting, though, and this is what I was researching before the show. This was floating around on Twitter this past week, but it's about 3 years old. The Pew Research Center did a poll for men and women to see what I forget, it was like 18 to 29-year-olds or so. Do they want to get married, right? And so right now, girls are far less likely than boys to want to get married. 74% of young men want to get married. Only 61% of young women want to get married. Okay. Go back to 1993 when they started tracking this, and it was exactly inverted. Men back then were at 76%. So there's only been a 2% drop in all these years. In 30-something years, there's only been a 2% drop. Men went from 76 to 74%. But women used to be at 83%. That's a 22% drop in women that want to get married in these, whatever it is, 30-something years. And so what's fascinating, and what I found most fascinating about all that is, all I actually ever hear is the red pill people telling men how terrible it is to get married because it's bad with the family courts, and women take all your money when they divorce you, and the government, they have all these incentives just to be single women and take the baby. And so, and actually we could acknowledge a lot of the realities of the system, and yet men still want to get married. And the women who get the better deal, if things go south, they're the ones who don't want to get married anymore, which just tells you how destructive feminism has become. This is Gloria Steinem. Women need men like fish need a bicycle. Okay, they've bought into that, even though marriage is the greatest thing in the world for women. And you can make the argument. I think it's probably equally good for both. But if you were going line by line, it's probably a better deal for women than it is for men. Marriage is an incredibly good thing for women, and they're rejecting it at unprecedented rates.
Been brainwashed. Shemeka?
You know, thank God Paul Pierce was tall and had athletic ability, because he just strikes me as one of those kids who had to be taken out of the class and get help on their worksheet. He's just not that smart. Whoever this Chris Broussard is, yes, those are the type of men that we need leading the movement to bring back marriages and families and cohesive communities. So I just applaud him, because you're sitting around other men. He's not caring how he may be looked at. He doesn't care to be called the simp or any of those things. He's just bold in his faith and what he believes, and he spoke out about it. Applause to him.
Yeah, Chris has been a long-time sports broadcaster, ESPN broadcaster, now over at Fox Sports. He's got his own movement called King Movement. I forget what the KING stands for. But, you know, he's been doing outreach to primarily black men for years from a biblical point of view. And so, yeah, Chris has been in this lane for a long time, authentically. The last thing I'll say before we wrap up is I would also say that, you know, advice to Chris in turn. He's getting a little bit of the Stephen A. Smith forehead thing, and it's almost turned into a mirror up here at top. I don't know what he could do about that, but anyway, we'll end there. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, TJ.
Jason, Shemeka, you should, after this, one of Jason's best on-air fights ever is with Chris Broussard over at Fox. It's over the LeBron James graffiti stuff. It is.
Oh, wow.
And I'm pretty sure Whitlock's sitting there with an American flag draped over him as he's having this conversation. Is that right?
That was, I think you're conflating two. I think that was a Kobe Bryant related show when I did the flag around me, but I definitely had to dispute. And look, TJ, I was trying to be all positive. Now you want to go into beefs between me and Chris Broussard. I'm gonna keep it positive. Chris and I believe in Jesus Christ, and so we'll end it there. Thank you guys. We'll see you this weekend I'm having a Shadur Palooza Sunday night at 7 p.m. Join me on the Fearless channel Sunday night immediately after the Browns-Raiders game. All right, that's it, and that's all for us today. We'll see you next week.
Up so divided, stop fighting and stand tall. We used to be a nation, one united. Now we're headed for downfall. God, let your light shine down. What we need more than anything now, harmony. Let's make a simple vow. Let's come together now. Harmony. Put all your weapons down. Love one another now. Time for us to wake up. Choose love, my sister, my brother.